It's Sunday, August 4th. We got a quick update and a lot of good information on the situation in Whaley Bridge, Derbyshire, UK, with the failed emergency spillway on the Toddbrook Reservoir. The situation is still critical over there as they're mostly concerned about more rain that's potentially coming in the form of thunderstorms, so it could be localized heavy flooding. I had a long conversation with local resident Jamie Beecham, and he gave me a lot of interesting detail of how this reservoir works and what the issues are at present. A lot of you are asking, what does a bloke from California know anything about the dam all the way over there in the UK? Well, my name's Juan Brown. You're watching the Blancolirio channel, and we covered extensively, as those of you who've been watching the channel for a while, the entire Oroville dam and spillway situation over the last 2.5 years. And there's a lot of lessons that we learned at Oroville that are playing out right now in Whaley Bridge. To best understand the works over at Toddbrook Reservoir, it's best to go back and review the history of the reservoir. The reservoir was built in 1831 during the Industrial Revolution. The Whaley Bridge area was and is to this day a major quarry mining area of stone. Back in the Industrial Revolution, they didn't have the roads developed up into that area to get to the stone quarries, so they developed this series of canals using locks to raise and lower the boats to get them up over the terrain, to get them up into the quarry area around Whaley Bridge. Well, this reservoir is basically what I call, as a pilot, an accumulator, or a storage of water that is allowed to pour into the canal system to basically backfill for the canals as boats are raised and lowered through the lock system, and that water is lost. Well, the main outlet for Toddbrook Reservoir is to feed the canals. Well, right now the canals are completely inundated with rainwater, so operators do not want to drain more of that reservoir water into the canal system. That's why they're now having to pump the water out of the Toddbrook Reservoir and directly, as they can, into the Goit River, which is providing another set of issues. These canals are about 12 feet wide by 8 feet deep and were used for years until the railroad was able to do the same job better, cheaper, and faster. It was only until about the 1970s that the canals were revitalized for tourism, and they're still in use to this day. This historic canal system is operated by a non-profit trust, which presents its own problems as far as payment for maintenance of the infrastructure. Now it's all hands on deck right now as emergency services are providing gas-powered pumps to pump the water out of the Toddbrook Reservoir and directly as they can into the Goit River, bypassing the canal system. So far they've managed to lower the water level down to about the 64% full level. In other words, 36% of the water has already been pumped out. They've managed to lower the water level about 3 or 4 meters with a goal of about 7 meters from full. Meanwhile, the RAF Chinook helicopter, the one single helicopter, this is kind of a small reservoir, it's only a mile long, so the Chinook's a big piece of equipment, and there really is only room to operate one helicopter at a time in this area. That helicopter's been working long shifts, dumping over 400 tons of, well, quarry material from the local area into the face of the dam where the emergency spillway has failed. Now let's go take a look at some pictures and maps and get a little clearer picture of what's going on here. The earth-filled dam at Toddbrook features a clay core center, impervious clay core, and the concrete auxiliary, or what I call emergency spillway, down the face of the dam, which feeds back into the Toddbrook and into the Goit River. The whole idea of lowering the water level in the reservoir now is to reduce the head pressure on this dam, but more importantly, allow more storage space for in the event of additional rain to prevent water from ever overflowing over this auxiliary spillway again, until which time that it can be properly repaired or rebuilt. Because unfortunately the damage to this reservoir is located very near to the top of the dam, and as an earth-filled dam, if water was allowed to continue to pour continuously over this damaged section, the entire dam could very well fail over time. Even with no further overtopping of the spillway, engineers are concerned that heavy rainfall could further erode this damaged section of the dam underneath the auxiliary spillway. So the RAF Chinook helicopter is able to pick up quarry material and 1-ton bags, I believe they are. Looks like he's able to clip on 6 of these bags at a time here off a Reservoir Road and drop them into position into the damaged section of the auxiliary spillway. This not only strengthens the dam, but also decreases the possibility of further erosion of material out from underneath the auxiliary spillway. To date, this single helicopter operating in long shifts has dropped about 525 tons of material in here, and they will be backfilling this with a liquid concrete to hold these bags into place. Note also the addition of sandbags on top of the splash wall to further help divert water away from the damaged area. But water managers are having to balance this act between, just like we did at Oroville, between the amount of rainfall predicted to come in versus the reservoirs upstream from Whaley Bridge towards Buxton that are also feeding and flooding water into the Goyt River. So they're going to have to balance how much water they continue to dump out of the reservoir, the Toddbrook Reservoir, versus the amount of water that's naturally feeding into the Goyt River to prevent flooding, folks, from downstream on the Goyt River from Whaley Bridge. Spit it out, Brownie. Here's what I'm trying to illustrate. All of this activity has resulted in the Environment Agency issuing 10 flood alerts, 6 flood warnings, and 1 severe flood warning. The folks that are evacuated don't know or have received no word as to how long they will remain evacuated, and it could be perhaps as long as 7 days. Some of the evacuated folks were allowed briefly to get back into their house to get medications and pets and that sort of thing, about 15 minutes, and then ordered to once again leave. So with the help of local resident Jamie Beecham, I got a little more information about how this reservoir operates under normal conditions. The normal spillway for this reservoir is the boat ramp, or better known as slipway in the UK, located here on the north end of the dam, which diverts the water around or away from the dam and back into Toddbrook. This water feature shown in orange is the outlet that feeds directly into the canal system and is the main purpose of this entire reservoir. This outlet tunnels underground under Toddbrook and Whaley Bridge before emerging into the canal system. And this third outlet feeds directly into Toddbrook, and Toddbrook, of course, feeds directly into the Goyt River. And here's what the inlet to these water features looks like behind the dam. So this leaves the auxiliary spillway, or as I call it, the emergency spillway, which has apparently only been used twice, either since it was rebuilt in the 70s or since the inception of the dam. I'm not sure. So if this spillway has only been used a couple times, why did it fail? Well, looking at the grass and vegetation growing through what appears to be the cracks in the spillway, after all the forensic reports are done, I think you're going to find that natural rainfall pouring over 50 years over this spillway has eroded the dirt out from underneath the concrete slabs, and as soon as some high flows were introduced over this structure, it quickly failed. So in the end, the auxiliary spillway operated pretty much as per plan, like an emergency spillway. An emergency spillway is designed to be in place and act much like a slow blow fuse in a circuit. It allows time to regain control of the reservoir in the event of an emergency and safely evacuate folks and get them out of the way until the situation can be resolved. Because this feature of the reservoir is so seldomly used, oftentimes planners, as we learned in Oroville, tend to disregard the possible failure modes of such an obscure part of the structure. And so often maintenance tends to get deferred. It would be very interesting to see how many times have you guys done core samples on this auxiliary spillway to determine the continuity of material underneath the concrete slabs. And it's unfortunately not until emergencies like these that some of the more dangerous consequences of these obscure failure modes are realized. So hats off to the wonderful community of volunteers and first responders that are working hard in harm's way to regain control of this reservoir. And hopefully soon, full funding and proper engineering will be in place to restore Toddbrook Reservoir to full functionality.